Multiplying and dividing rational expressions. The first thing we're going to look at in this section is working with multiplying rational expressions, and the rules for multiplying rational expressions are the same for multiplying fractions. And remember, when we multiply fractions, you're going to multiply the numerators, and then you're going to multiply the denominators. So in this example here, it shows you what takes place when multiplying rational expressions. So you might have something, for instance, a over b times c over d, and you just multiply across a times c over b times d. And we're going to look at, there's some different methods and ways for simplifying rational expressions. You can simplify your rational expression first, simplify first by dividing out common factors and then multiply the remaining factors. Or you can multiply first and then simplify. Using either method is going to give you the same answer. So I'm going to show you both methods in this lesson, and then you can decide and choose what works best for you. So let's start with some examples here. We're going to multiply and then simplify your answer. So the first step is we're going to multiply the numerators and denominators, and then arrange the expression so like variables are together. So we're going to multiply c minus 4 times 45, and we're going to multiply 5 times negative 4c plus 16. And when we do that, what we have here, and notice they arrange the expression for like variables to be together. So we have 45 times c minus 4, and then they distributed that 5, they factored out that negative 4c plus 16, which is 5 times negative 4, and then you end up with c minus 4. So this is what we get when we multiply it. Then what we're going to do is we are going to multiply 5 times negative 4 to get negative 20. So what we have is 45 times c minus 4 over negative 20 times c minus 4. We can cancel out those common factors. And so what we're left with is 45 over negative 20, which simplifies down to negative 9 over 4. And this is going to be my final answer. The next question, again, we're going to multiply the numerators and denominators, and then arrange them so like variables are together. So we'll multiply that 5 and 2, and then you multiply your, you have your x to the 4th, then we have y to the 5th, y squared, and z. So notice how they set this up. 5 times 2 times x to the 4th, y to the 5th times y squared times z. And then the bottom, they multiply the numbers 4 times 3. Then they multiply the x's. You have x and x times x, y squared times y times z. And then what we're going to do is simplify this down. So when we simplify this down, what we're going to end up with, 5 times 2 is 10, times x to the 4th, y to the 5th times y squared. Remember, we're going to add these exponents to get y to the 7th over z. Then for my denominator, we have 4 times 3 is 12, x times x is x squared, y squared times y is y to the 3rd times z. And then what we're going to do is we simplify this down. And what we'll end up with is, notice my z's are going to cancel. So I end up with, and when we have like variables, remember way back in chapter 7, when you have like variables with different exponents like this, we're going to subtract 4 minus 2 to get x to the 2nd. Y to the 7th, y to the 3rd becomes y to the 4th. So I simplify down 10 over 12, which becomes 5, 6. Then we get x squared y to the 4th, and this will be my final answer. So you have to bring in your exponent rules when you're working with multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Here we have some more examples, and our first one here is we are going to factor first. So notice we have here n minus 5 over n squared plus 4n times n squared plus 8n plus 16 over n squared minus 3n minus 10. So I'm going to factor. So let's factor first n squared plus 8n plus 16, and you end up with n plus 4, n plus 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, 4 plus 4 is 8, n times n is n squared. Now here, with this n squared plus 4n, you can pull out an n. So when we pull out an n, what we're left with is n parenthesis n plus 4. Factoring out n squared minus 3n minus 10, what you get is n plus 2, n minus 5. So we factor first. Then what we're going to do is we're going to divide out common factors. So what are common factors? So for instance, you have n plus 4 and n plus 4, so those would cancel here. N minus 5 and n minus 5, we would cancel those out. And then you rewrite what's left, which is going to be that n plus 4 for the numerator, and the denominator is going to be n parenthesis n plus 2. And so this is my answer. So we multiply and get n plus 4 over n squared plus 2n, and that'll be my final answer. So this was the other method where you factor first, and then you divide out common factors and you simplify it down. So looking at B here, similarly, what we're going to do is we're going to factor first, and then we'll divide out common factors. So what we're going to factor out is this m squared minus 4m minus 12. And what we're going to end up with for that is going to be m minus 6 and m plus 2. Notice what they did is they took this m plus 3m plus 6 and they put it over 1. So let's look at 3m plus 6. You can factor out a 3. So you have 3 parenthesis m plus 2. So I factored out this situation. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide out common factors. So common factors, just looking at this, is going to be the m plus 2. So what I'm going to end up with is 3 parenthesis m minus 5 over m minus 6. And we simplify that down further. So what I can do is distribute this 3 to the m to get 3m. 3 times negative 5 is minus 15. So that's how they got 3m minus 15 all over m minus 6. And this will be my final answer. Now we're going to get into dividing rational expressions, and the rules for dividing rational expressions again are like dividing fractions. And remember, when we're dividing fractions, you're multiplying. We say we multiply by the reciprocal. So in this example, we might have a over b divided by c over d. So to solve rational expressions by dividing, we multiply the first set by the reciprocal of the second. So it's going to be a times d over b times c. So here's our last set of examples. And we have here 3 over x squared divided by x to the third over x minus 5. So as the definition mentioned in the previous slide, we are going to take this first set, 3 over x squared, and we're going to multiply that by the reciprocal, which becomes 3 over x squared times, notice we flipped this x minus 5, that's now in the numerator, over x to the third. Then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the numerator and denominator. So we're going to multiply 3 times x minus 5. So we're going to distribute the 3 to the x, distribute 3 to the negative 5. And then we multiply x squared times x to the third, which is going to be x to the fifth, because 2 plus 3 is 5. And so my final answer for this is going to be 3x minus 15 over x to the fifth. And that'll be my answer for this. The next one, we have 18v w squared over 6v divided by 3v squared times x to the fourth over 2w to the fourth times x. So we're going to take this first situation and multiply it by the reciprocal of the second. So you're going to end up with 18v w squared over 6v times, now we flip this to get 2w to the fourth times x over 3v squared times x to the fourth. And then we're going to multiply this out. So you can multiply 18 times 2, multiplying the w's, w squared and w to the fourth, and your x and your v. And then for the denominator here, you would multiply 6 times 3, v to the first times v to the second, and then you have your x to the fourth. So here we have it. And when we simplify this down and divide it out with our common factors, we get 18 times 2 is going to give me 36. V, then we get w squared times w to the fourth becomes w to the sixth times my x over 6 times 3 is 18. V times v to the second is v to the third. And then we have x to the fourth. So what I do now is I can simplify 36 divided by 18. Notice we have v and v to the third. And then we have x to the first and x to the fourth. So what they did is they brought down, this would be my final answer, 36 divided by 18 gives me 2. W to the 6 stays for the numerator. Why did I bring down v squared and x to the third? Well, v to the first minus v to the third becomes v to the negative 2. And when you have a negative exponent, that moves down to your denominator. And then for your x, you have x to the first and x to the fourth. 1 minus 4 gives you x to the negative 3. Again, a negative exponent brings you down to x to the negative third right there. So this here, this 2w to the sixth over v squared times x to the third, that's going to be your final answer for dividing that out. The last one here, C, we have x to the second minus x over x plus 2 divided by x squared plus 2x minus 3. That's going to be all over 1. And so what we're going to do is we're going to write this multiplication by working with the reciprocal. So when we do this, it's going to be x squared minus x over x plus 2 times 1, because we took the reciprocal, we flipped it, 1 over x squared plus 2x minus 3. So now what we're going to do, excuse me, is we're going to multiply. So we get x squared minus x times 1, which just becomes x squared minus x. And then we're going to multiply the bottom, x plus 2 times x squared plus 2x minus 3. And then what we can do here, whoops, is we would just multiply that. Once we have multiplied this out, we're now going to factor things out here. So our x squared minus x, we can pull out an x. So what we have is now x minus 1 over, we have our x plus 2. And then now we need to factor out this x squared plus 2x minus 3. So we have our x and our x. We have a positive and a negative, so a positive and a negative. Then 3, we have to think of factors of 3. That would add to be 2, positive 2. So it's going to be positive 3 and a negative 1. So this is the denominator factored out. Now we can divide out common factors, which is our x minus 1. So what I'm left with now is x over x plus 2, x plus 3. And then from there, we now factor, or we FOIL the denominator here, which becomes, so what my final answer is x over x times x is x squared, plus 3 times x gives me 3x,